showcase the people, the projects, everyone who's doing on the right track to helping to advance Dominica. So again, as we're seeing the live stream is now on, we want to say good evening and welcome to another episode of Roots Connections right here on Q95, the big station. Today we have another packed program for you. We have another wonderful program for you as we are joined by folks from the Bernadette Francis Foundation and others as we look at beyond offering scholarships to Dominican students. So what is needed? What do we need to do to secure the future of our Dominican young people? You know, as we continue to see the world is changing and evolving, here on Roots Connection, we continue to ask the question, what changes are needed? What changes are there that we can already take advantage of to help to advance our people, our island, and our Caribbean region? We continue to face many battles in Dominica, but here on Roots Connection, our focus is on highlighting the good, highlighting those who are working towards helping to advance Dominica. So again, a very pleasant, warm welcome to you. Cody, go ahead and mute your mic, please. This is episode number 74 of Roots Connections for today, July 24th, 2024. And I am your host, Simone Matthew. But before we get started, let us pray for our country. We must always remember to pray for our beautiful island of Dominica. And today in particular, we pray for Mrs. Annette Thomas Sanford, who, as many of us know, just became the very first female Kalinago chief in Dominica. So we pray for her success and for all that she will be able to accomplish during her time as Kalinago chief. So let's go ahead and give a very warm welcome to our guests and thank them for taking time out of their busy schedules to be here for this episode of Roots Connections. So we will invite them to unmute their mics and simply greet the audience. So just say a quick hello to the audience and let them know how you feel about being on the program. So we always go with ladies first. So let's go with Miss Ingrid. Go ahead and greet the audience, please.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Dr. Martha Joseph is also here with us. Martha, go ahead and greet the audience.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm Martha, and of course, Dominica is my heart. So thank you for just having me on your show tonight, and I am looking forward to everything.
Yes. Cody, go ahead and greet the audience.
Hey, good evening. This is Cody Berry, Representative Bernadette Francis Foundation. Glad to be on this program. Had the opportunity to meet Simone back in May at a program that we kind of sparked a common interest. Glad to be on the program to talk about what it is that the Bernadette Francis Foundation has been doing in Dominica and the lives that we are touching.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Bevan Etienne, great to have you on board. Greet the audience.
Well, greetings, everyone. Happy to be on this program. It's always a pleasure. I'm not a media person. I'm not in the media that much when it comes to Dominica, but I think this is a wonderful program, and I'm happy to be part of this program today, especially when we talk about, how do we address some of the pressing problems that we face as a society. How do we address this? Where do we start, and what should the future look like?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well. So again, I'm looking forward to the contribution of all our guests on this program this evening. So if you're joining us late, if you just tuned in, again, welcome to Roots Connections. We continue to work to position Dominica to benefit from all the changes that are going on in the world. As always, we are grateful to you, our audience, listening via the radio, and everyone who is tuned in on Q95 FM radio on Facebook and YouTube, as well as Push Past 10 on Facebook. We are grateful for you and we look forward to your contributions to the discussion later in the program. Don't forget to share the live, let everyone know that we are here, and remember to click the notification button so you will always know when we go live. We continue to be grateful to Mr. G and the Q95 family for the opportunity to be here with you every second and fourth Wednesday of the month as we continue to work to reverse that brain drain that has inflicted the Caribbean region for the last few decades. So again, welcome to the program. We want to get started off this evening. You know, a lot of us noticed the incredible energy and potential of our young people on full display last weekend with the bike festival, the very first Dominica bike festivals. But you know, every time I see these festivals, the one question that keeps coming back to mind is what next? Right? So, what are the economic opportunities that we should be focusing on, having a concrete plan to go beyond this festival? So, I'm very happy that we have folks from the Bernadette Francis Foundation joining us this evening because they are on the forefront of providing answers to that question of what next. What are we doing to secure the future of our young people? So let's jump right into the question. And Cody, I'm going to begin with you because we hear the name Bernadette Francis, and many of us may not be familiar with her name. So why don't you tell us who was Bernadette Francis and why was it important to begin a foundation in her name?
Thank you for the opportunity to share with your community, the Dominican community, the diaspora, regarding what it is the Bernadette Francis Foundation, who we are, what it is that we do. So Bernadette Francis is my grandmother, Bevan's grandmother, and she was the one that started this whole movement, right? So my cousin, Vincia Francis, wanted to do something on behalf of my grandmother to recognize the efforts that she made that really has sparked a whole generation and multi-generations in the advancement of education. My grandmother believed in education. She was the sole individual. My dad, for instance, his dad passed away when he was a young age, and my grandmother Bernadette from Delices, right? So like Dr. Martha J is from Delices, and we have a rural connection, right? So one of the things, what happened was that the way the foundation started off, my like I indicated, my cousin Vincia Francis wanted to recognize my grandmother for all the efforts that she made in getting us to where we were. So the story, some of you may or may not know about it, but if you went to our website, the Bernadette Francis Foundation.org, you can see the whole story behind it. But in a nutshell, what happened was that my dad, Balthazar Barry, some of you may or may not know who he is. He's actually the one who founded the cooperative movement in Dominica. He had in terms of the credit union, he was one of the founders, the foundation who started the credit union movement in Dominica. And when we look at the credit union movement in Dominica, this is one of the biggest banking institutions in the whole island, right? So he and Sister Ellis from in those days she was at the Goodwill Catholic Church. They started, Sister Alice. They started this. They had this idea about being able to help the community and develop it. But going back to the story, what essentially happened is that when my dad, so going back in history, so those of us that's aging us, when we went to high school, we knew that it was a competition, right? It's not anybody who got to get to high school as it is today. There was essentially, you had to do your common entrance, and the top of the top, right? The cream of the crop, got the opportunity to go to high school. So my dad got a scholarship to go to high school, but unfortunately, his mother, Bernadette, did not have the funds to be able to send him to school, right? Although he got a scholarship. So she ended up having to borrow $5, right? $5 back in those days to be able to help him to go to high school. And as a result of that, he going to high school, he got educated, he was able to help his siblings. And as a result, that was a domino effect. So many of us, not only in the family, but friends, relatives, have benefited from this $5 that started off this whole thing. So as a result, my cousin, Vincia Francis, who is the president of the foundation, decided that she wanted to recognize my grandmother by starting the foundation on behalf of her and recognizing what $5 could do. So the whole idea about this is being able to help those in need, right? We talk about pull stream. That's exactly what it is.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for that, Cody. And I know, Bevan, we can ask you to add some more. But, before we do all that, let's just give a better introduction of each one of our guests. This being Roots Connections, we kind of want to know about your roots from Dominica. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing and a little bit about your profession. So, Bevan, let's start with you. A little bit of your upbringing and your profession.
All right. No, yes, Cody, thanks for putting this out. I think, perfectly right. I mean, where $5 can actually lead us today, right? So many of us have gone through that system of education. Well, I grew up in Dalis. I am strictly from the country. Yeah? The White River, the mountains, and then grew up on a farm. So my parents, my mother was the principal of the school when I went to school in Dalis. And that's, Cody's aunt, that's Arthur Barry's sister. And by the way, what Cody did not say is that when Uncle Barry went over through his education system, he turned back and provided the economic incentives for his brother to go to school to become a teacher. And that became something that actually caused that domino effect where my mom and my aunt, so in Bernadette Francis' home, she had 4 teachers. I mean, that's just, it's crazy, right? It's one lady. But so I grew up in that space in Dalis. My parents were really conscious of the land. I mean, we grew up literally in the mountains, working the land, rearing animals, but they were also very much attuned to education. So there was no separation between leveraging the resources that you have on the land and also pursuing an education, right? And how the two, there's a symbiotic relationship between the two, right? And the symbiotic relationship that we will talk about a little bit more today is how it allowed me to look at the resources that we have in Dominica through a different lens, right? I remember when we went to school at the time, I would hear people say that if you don't learn in school, then you would use cutlass and wear boots.
Yep.
Right? But for us, growing up in Dalis on the farm, wearing the boots was a standard. Actually, by the time I was 5, I had my pair of boots. And I think I'm an expert with a cutlass because my dad and my mom taught we had to know how to plant, how to take care of animals, and how to live off the land. But see every aspect of the land as a potential resource that can be used to add value. And, so that actually triggered my interest in my whole education experience, I would say, is kind of tied to some of that initiative that was planted from that upbringing, right? I mean, I remember going to school and our meals were prepared at home. So breakfast and lunch was made from just the home. As a matter of fact, I remember going to school and before going into school in the morning from Dalis, you would have roast plantain and probably some roast fish. And then I'd walk with that in the lunchbox with my mom, as that was my lunch during lunch break as a primary school student, right? So it was that sort of appreciation of what we have and how we can leverage what we have, I think, is what shaped the way that I view the world and even the way that I function, even in my capacity as a professor today at the University of Virginia.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Bevan. Martha, over to you. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your roots in Dominica, and your profession. You're muted.
Yes. So I'm Martha Marcella Joseph. I'm from Dalis. Um, I know Bevin well, of the boy. Bevin, because I am way past his. Right, Bevin? I'm not going to say much about us, but yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I am from Dalis. Of course, I attended Dalis Primary School, grew up, went to Dominica Grammar School, and went back up, became a teacher, taught in Botica first, then in Grand Font, then in Dalis, and then I moved to Virgin Islands where I did my degree in, of course, I went to the Teachers Training College first, but then I studied in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and then I moved to Florida. So worked as elementary, middle school, secondary teacher, and now I am adjunct faculty at Florida Tech in Florida. And I am an entrepreneur myself, so I am an educational consultant. I do mainly professional development in school districts, and I also have educational resources for improving writing in students across from grades K, pre-K actually, all the way to 12. And so that's what I pride myself in most, just learning, teaching kids how to write. I just think that every kid should know how to write. One of the things that we find out is that 60% of students can read, but 60% of those who read are not able to write on grade level. If I have 10 students who can read, 6 of them are not able to write on grade level. And that's the part that we're missing out. Critical thinking is important. I know we have AI and people are going to say more about that. But if we can think critically for ourselves, I think we contribute to AI rather than AI just, dominating us.
Yeah, and it becomes less of a threat because a lot of people are nervous right now.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Ingrid, over to you. Your professional background, your connection in Dominica. And then, guys, what I want us to do is kind of just jump into the conversation. So I'm just going to throw the questions out there and feel free to chime in as the spirit moves you. I'm not necessarily going to call on a particular panel member. So the next question we're going to explore when Ingrid is done with her introduction is just to kind of peel out what is the foundation. So what exactly do you do as the foundation with regards to scholarship and of course beyond the scholarship? Because I know for you it is not just about awarding scholarships, it goes far beyond awarding scholarships, and then kind of just broadening that conversation even beyond the scholarships and even beyond what you do to the larger population of Dominica. And again, I want to congratulate you because I had the opportunity to live stream your award, your scholarship award ceremony on Saturday, and you awarded 27 scholarships. Everybody on Facebook and in the audience, clap. You awarded 27 scholarships, language clapping, to Dominican students. So I want us to kind of just explore everything about the scholarships and beyond. So Ingrid, over to you, your connections, your roots in Dominica, and your professional background.
Well, I'm originally from Botica. I've been a teacher for 30 plus years. I went to the Teachers College. I've taught in Botica, Daly, La Plaine, Grand Fort, and the Newtown Primary School. I'm presently teaching at the Bells Primary School. I also taught with Dr. Joseph at one time. And I just love writing. And when I believe that we can really see children through their writing, we know who children are through their writing. And when I see children cannot write, it really pains me. So Dr. Joseph's strategy really brought, light to our writing at the Bells Primary School. But I guess we'll address that a little later on.
Yeah, so again, welcome to the program. Thank you everyone for being here. So let us now just kind of peel back the layers. So Cody, where did the foundation start? Let's start from the beginning. What did you start with? And kind of just tell us how it grew and evolved. So you and Bevan can probably take that particular question, and then we can have Martha and Ingrid kind of talk about how they became involved and what are their roles in the foundation.
Thank you for the opportunity again. So when the foundation began 11 years ago, the whole idea was to provide assistance to students in need. So we started off in the first year. Bevan, correct me if I'm wrong. We got 2 scholarships, right? That's the way we started off. And again, it was all about needs based, right? It's not just, hey, I'm going to apply for a scholarship. You had to have a need. So as a result, the 2 grew up, and then we started growing year over year over year. Last year, we gave 30 scholarships, right? And by the way, when we give scholarships, there is nothing regarding politics associated. It's all about needs. So if you went online and you looked at where the students came from, they came from all over Dominica, right? Whether it be Marigot, it be Wesley, it be the South, it did not matter. Bells, Daly says, it did not matter. It was all about need, helping students in need, a financial need. So if like my dad experienced when he went to high school, his mom did not have the money to be able to help him to go to school. He got a scholarship. That's all well and good, right? So today, what we are providing is that we're providing assistance to students. I got a scholarship, but guess what? I also need to have uniforms to go to school, right? So the scholarship doesn't provide for uniforms, so we provide that. So when you have a student who goes to a private institution like SMA or convent, guess what? They still have to pay tuition. So that's where we come in. We subsidize those additional costs that parents have. Okay, so again, 30. So when Bevan, correct me if I'm wrong, you chime in here. I want to say to date, we have provided over 130 scholarships, right, to students in Dominica, right? Some of them are recurrent scholarships, some of them are new, right? So one of the things that our goals is to be able to follow our students through the progression, right? It's not just providing a scholarship, but being able to provide a mentorship to the students, right? So in our foundation, we have what we call a quarterly check-in. So we have a Zoom call, and I invite all the students to come on. We talk to them. We provide them with opportunities to meet others within different disciplines, right? So you may have someone who is an engineer, who is a doctor, or whatever the case may be. They get an opportunity to ask questions, right? Ask questions and see, oh, maybe this is something that sparks my interest, right? So those are the kinds of things that we did. But I want to preface one of the conversations on how things Martha and Ingrid came into the picture. I joined the foundation, and in the process, I wanted to understand what was the biggest challenges that high schools were facing with students coming in. Unanimously, they said to me that, and it did not matter whether it was convent grammar school or Wesley High School or whatever, they unanimously indicated that students coming to school, to high school, were not prepared. So I asked the question, what do you mean that they're not prepared? And the response was that they can't communicate, they can't read at the level they need to be, so we have to do remedial training. So in my background, I do a lot of root cause analysis, right? So I started asking, how can we help the situation? And lo and behold, I spoke to my cousin, Vincia, and she said, guess what? I may have a solution for you. And she said to me that prior to Maria, we had supported Dr. Mafa J, and she had this initiative that she launched in Dominica. It was a literacy initiative, right? It's an approach. And I said, ha! So I reached out and things just started flowing. The sparks started flying. And I was like, it was so excited that Martha said to me, oh, I was looking for something like this, right? And one thing led to the other, and all the schools that we are touching today. Okay. So I'm going to take a pause on that and let someone else chime in
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Cody. So, Bebe, let me come to you. So again, the layers of the Bernadette Francis Foundation. Your thoughts on that?
Oh no, there are many layers. So Cody absolutely, touched on quite a few of it. So I would say one of the things that we've done so besides giving scholarships, we try to track students to see how they perform year over year. And I think what we're trying to figure out is the elevation, right? How much better are they performing based upon the needs that they're getting? But also put some onus on the students to be kind of community engaged, right? Trying to see if we can get them to be to kind of become leaders, become some of the support networks for the new students who get scholarships, right? So that creates somewhat of a community. So I mean, growing up in Dominica, I mean, one of the things that we had as a kid, I mean, we had Kudme, right? People, the community. When I went to school, by the way, I was not just going. The elders in the village were part of my support structure.
Mm-hmm.
I could not walk past the elders and don't say good afternoon, good morning, right? I could not, and by the way, if I don't do that, I get reported. They would say to my mother and my dad that, look, this is what's happening. And then when they get home, it's, a pile on things, right? Why would you disrespect the people? But it was also part of that community building situation that was instilled in this operation. So if we think it is important to kind of encourage students to be active in community, right? And try to see, and one of the things that when Cody and we meet regularly, we're trying to figure out how do we get some of the students who have had scholarships to become mentors to the new students coming in based upon where they are in their academic journey, right? So if you're a fifth former, maybe you have tips and ideas to help those who have scholarships or we are assisting that are in the third forms. And by doing that, it kind of helps them create some sort of leadership skills, right? Creates a kind of a community, not just for myself, but for the other person that's coming behind. So that's also very important to us. I talk about the fact that we also look at, so my area of interest, is in sustainability. I do a lot of work in the sustainability space, but I look at it through the lens of how do we address the issues around the Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 issues that are crucial to us support survive as a species in some ways, right, as humanity. And education is part of that. And for that, I think we're trying to figure out how to address this through the BFF, the Bernadette Francis Foundation, how to present opportunities so that people can then see pathways where they can understand the resources that they have much more clearly. Because I would say to you that, reading and writing is fundamental, but we also need to look at what it is that we have within our grasp, right? And how do we reframe our thinking to understand that what we have before us is worth much more than what is not within our grasp. It's kind of the mindset. A bird in the hand is worth more than two on the run, right? Mm-hmm. So how do we look at what we have and make use of it? So at the BFF, we also look at trying to work with the farmers in Dalis in some ways. I've had funding come through the BFF to support initiatives around Toloma, how we can start thinking about value added. I've actually, gotten students from the university to look at different processes, different marketing opportunities, different products that could be developed from these resources. It's at a higher level where I think over time, some of the students that go get scholarships from the primary school into the high school, I'm thinking we can create a higher level body of knowledge, body of understanding as to what can be done with the resources that we have, that they then can actually place themselves into the spaces, right? Because this can actually lead to new innovation, new entrepreneurship ideas, new business models that can actually support the community. So again, it's not just about the scholarships. It's about thinking way down into the future and trying to kind of tie, make, see all the points, all the elements that are around us and how we can actually tap into it. But understand before to us to get to that point and do it right, we need to have a proper educated society, right? And a society that appreciates the resources that it has as well. Because I've seen a lot of us, once we get our degrees, we kind of move on with our lives, right? And that's part of the brain drain situation that we face. But if we can always look back and see how we can leverage the resources that we have to add value to community, I think that is one of the things that we're trying to address as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Bevan. And we have a lot to unpack in what you said. But I want to piggyback on something that Cody said, because I do not want to simply gloss over it, because it is a very serious concern. And that is the idea that students have gotten all the way through to high school and they are not prepared for high school. And I'm a little bit taken back by that, because I don't recall in my time that being a tremendously huge problem in Dominica. So it sounds like we are at a point where students are being just passed on grade to grade to grade without meeting the criteria for performance in those grades. And then they get to high school, and finally someone stops and says, hey, this is really a problem that this student is not able to perform at the level of high school. So we've lost Ingrid for just a minute. But Martha, I find that very perplexing. What is your take on that? That now in Dominica, we're having students just pass through the ranks. I know that that has been a problem in some areas in the US. But the fact that we are now seeing students being passed along in Dominica and getting to high school without the necessary qualification is certainly a point of concern.
First of all, I need to say, Simone, if you were in Dominica in my time and Bevin time and Cody's time, we had the common entrance exam.
I did too.
Yeah, but that was the sole way, the sole manner of going to high school at the time. Because when I was in elementary school, there was Form 1, Form 2, and Form 3.
Mm-hmm.
Form 2 were those of us, we left Standard 5, and we went to Form 2 because they felt that we were ready. We could have stayed in that class for 3 years or 2 years or 1 year even, and we had an opportunity to pass the exam and go to high school. At that time, they were given like 300 spaces in schools in Dominica. So the people who did not get an opportunity to go to high school, either because they were passed over or because they were not able to read, because I do remember having students in my 5th grade class who could not read. They ended up in the Form 1 and they stayed there until they were old enough to go to Form 3, and then they left school. So I wouldn't say generally it's because I know for a fact that, sorry for the background, I know for a fact that things have changed, but I also know that the criteria was different. Now we have universal education. Everybody goes to high school. So once you make it to 6th grade, whether you pass the common entrance or not, you will go into some form of secondary education. Either you go to, yes, we have the secondary schools that's going to take you and the ones that, but everybody goes on. And so therefore you have that lack of preparation. And I don't want to think while there may be, because we have more distractions, of course. When I was in high school, we didn't have the distraction of the tech going on here and the TV, in fact. We didn't have any TV to watch. We had to read a book. So our distractions were less, and so we learned more. But that doesn't mean that there were not students who still were not able to read. Because if at that time they were going to send all of us to high school, I know that all of us would not have made it. So again, Bevin has his hand up, and so
Yeah, and I really want to open up the floor to this particular conversation because it's an important one. So I want to come to Bevan, but I'm just wondering, are we doing our students a disservice by simply just having everyone go through high school? Because back in the day, if you did not have the academic qualifications to go to high school, then we had the skills training programs, right? So yes, I do believe that every student has a right to a formal education, but not every student is academically inclined. So what when we take on that approach of having every student ascend to high school, how are we filtering to ensure that those who are academically inclined pursue that path, and those who are not academically inclined filled in to careers that are more applicable to their skill set? So Bevan, Cody, let me hear your thoughts on that.
go ahead.
A couple of things. Math is absolutely right. I think what I picked up on in Math's conversation is the fact that we are a very distracted society today, way more distracted in some ways than ever, right? I would not say that we should separate the two. I don't see any reason why we cannot have some of that skills training as over time, because one of the things that we create an unbalanced system when we have students solely focused on academics and not focused on how to use their hands and how to build things and create things, right? So that can potentially create some sort of disadvantage. But what I was really going to touch on is the fact that we live in the digital space, right? In the digital age, I would say, where we spend a lot of time on what we call smartphones and smart technology. But guess what? We call it smart technology whilst we're going getting dumber and dumber, literally. I mean, there have been studies that have shown that, look, when the smartphones came out 12 years ago, right, 2012 to 2024, they did a longitudinal study of the people, the students in schools that actually, across the world, actually, Western society, that were able to embrace smart technology. And what they have seen over time is that year after year after year, the students have become less and less competent in certain areas because they have gotten to rely heavily on technology to solve all the problems. When we were growing up, I mean, we solved problems.
Yep.
We were critical thinkers. We created our toys. The term boredom was not a term that I got to know as a kid, I mean, now kids talk about they're being bored, right? So we see this as things that have been over time became part of the way that people, so that change, I think, is also, we cannot talk about the system that we have today without talking about some of the structural things that have been changing in society. The question is, how do we get people to embrace that aspect of, life that we knew was great for us, right? That created, the body of knowledge, the talent, the skills that we have. How do we make this attractive to the next generation?
Yeah, thank you for that. Cody, I want to come to you, but let me just take a couple of comments on Facebook. Hey, Carl Kofi James, nice to see you. My mom, Medidan Stenhouse, is here. Nice to see you. And Miss Emmeline Anselm, better known as Emo News, always very proud of the work that she does. She's on the live, and of course, we know her as a teacher at the Portsmouth Secondary School. And here is what she's saying. The problem is not having adequate teachers. No, the problem is not having adequate teachers who are trained to deal with the students at those levels. So that is her observation as a teacher herself. Anyone have any thoughts on that, Cody? You want to chime in and tell us your thoughts about what this particular issue that we're talking about?
So I'm so grateful that Ingrid was able to come back online, because I would like her to actually be able to address that.
Yes.
Ingrid, if you would be so kind to address that.
Unmute.
Well, I tend to agree with the teacher. I believe that if we had more teachers who are actually qualified to teach the students, or should I say, one teacher in a classroom is not enough to when you have students who are lacking in certain areas. You need people who are qualified to be there with the teachers, to be there with the students, to teach them. And so I believe that if we had maybe teacher helpers or
Mhm. I think she froze. She's having some connection issues, but I think the point she
But
was making is yes. Go
education
ahead, Cody.
missing,
so so
some
so
skills that they need are missing. You need people who are able to help them.
yep.
Yes, thank you,
So
Ingrid.
Go
so
ahead.
so so to echo what Ingrid is saying, in the US we talk about interventionists, right?
Right.
So you see a student who has, back in our days, the term we that used to be used very loosely was that the child was mal cassé,
Yep.
right? Rather than really understanding why a student has behavioral opportunities. I'm not calling it issues. I'm calling it opportunities. Because we are not in tune with what's going on, we tend to label people, right? It's no different from what's happening in this country, in America, right? So a child has some kind of behavioral unnormality, if that's a real word, but they're not following the status quo, so therefore we label them, right? We don't tend to dig in to understand why it is that a student is acting out. It could be something at home. It could be a child comes to school and they're hungry, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. I was in Dominica last year and I visited one of the primary schools. And I was talking to the principal, and she said to me, there was a student, and that student was very agitated. And they were labeling the student. She inherited that student from a previous regime. And the first label that they put on this child was that this child is misbehaving. Well, why is that the case? Right? This child was coming to school and this child was hungry in the morning. Think about it. You come to school and you've got a hungry belly, right? You cannot concentrate. So it goes beyond just saying, I'm going to teach a class, but really understanding what is happening in that child's environment, right? We talk about the village. Bevin mentioned about, you couldn't go around the street and misbehave because guess what? You go home and you get a call out, right? So your mother or father will say, hey, guess what? You've been misbehaving. But the whole idea about this is really understanding why it is that children are the way they are when they come into the high school environment. And that's where Martha comes into play, right? Because she has an approach that she's developed and implemented and has been successful, right? So talk about going down to the root cause. So therefore, the approach is, let's start from the pre-K and let's make sure that the students have what they need to be successful. And part of that, by the way, is being able to educate the teachers, to have the teachers embrace that approach. And that's why folks like Ingrid is critical in this process, right? So Ingrid is from the Bell School, and we call her school the flagship because they have fully embraced, and we've seen the successes from the students that have been going through the Bell's primary school and the approach that they've implemented, thanks to Martha and thanks to folks like Ingrid.
Yeah, so I wanna speak to you, Ingrid, specifically about what that approach is. And guys, we will get back to the scholarship in terms of the qualifications, how do you apply, and all that. But as we know, these conversations take on a broader scope, so they have to take up a broader scope. But Martha, let me come to you before I go through Ingrid to talk about that flagship school and what exactly are they doing there? Because does this speak to the need for assessment? So how are we assessing students' skills in terms of placing them in schools in Dominica?
Martha?
Yes, Mother.
Oh, so um, the assessment level, I mean, I'm not in Dominica, so I don't want to say things that I don't know. I do know that they have an assessment on the second grade level, and Ingrid will correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Cody and Bevin and BFF said, we want to help, because of what the students said to, the principal said to Cody, we need help. And BFF at first, they were thinking of, let's just prepare students in sixth grade. And I said to them, sixth grade is very short. The sixth grade teacher is very focused on teaching content. They want to get the students ready for the common entrance. We have those students for barely, 180 days, just 10 months. Then they're going to leave again. So we can start from pre-K. If we begin from pre-K, we can see progress over 3 years. And by the time they get to sixth grade, we'll be able to see a lot more progress. And so they agreed. So the approach that they have created, and so in Dominica, they have the assessment on the second grade and the fifth grade, I think. What Ingrid will tell you a bit more about the assessment. But the writing to respond process is an approach that focuses on having students use both reading and writing, write concurrently. So students read things that they on their grade level, and then we use higher order thinking skills, the analysis, synthesis, and evaluative to get those students to react, to give suggestions, to question what they read. They can use field trips, and Bells has been awesome with that. They use field trips, they use anything that can provide text so that they can have the kids to develop that critical thinking. Because if you can ask me a question and I can respond to you, guess what? If you put that same question on paper, I'll be able to write it out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the writing to respond process focuses on pre-K, because we want them to start articulating their responses. We know that teachers always ask questions like, who was the main character and where is the story taking place? And these are questions you're always going to ask, but we want students to start answering, do you agree with? Do you think it was okay? Why do you think so? What from the text tells that to you? Do you have any suggestions to fix that? How can we fix that particular problem? And this, we all know Bloom's taxonomy as teachers.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the hardest for us. We don't want to ask those questions because kids talk, they don't tell us the right answers and we get frustrated. But what I always say to teachers, you just keep probing and probing and probing. And the teachers who understand the process, it's an approach. Although we have workbooks that we can use to measure success, we can utilize the approach even without workbooks. And so that's what Bells has embraced, and that's why they're seeing results. And in everywhere else that is happening. And I pass it on to Ingrid so that she can tell you more. But that's pretty much what it is. It's an approach that develops critical thinking skills from pre-K all the way to 6. So that way, hopefully by the end of the next 2 years, 3 years, we'll see better results because we've been populating those kids from pre-K, and they're going to go up and keep having it. And the one thing about schools is just that turnover. You might have the principal is gone by next semester, or the main teacher who was leading it. And that's the problem we've had, because we started from 2017, as I said before, and then Maria came and disrupted everything. And then teachers resigned, or not resigned, but retired. And then you had those who transferred from one school to the other. And all of that, unless it's coming from way up, we have permission from the ministry, and that's why we're able to do that. But it's not something that is from within the ministry. So that's why it's not very easy to make sure that it's continued unless the teacher is at the school for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and that is what I was going to ask. So, Ingrid, I was going to ask you to tell us more because Cody mentioned you're the flagship school
Yes.
in terms of what's going on. So, I wanted you to tell us more of exactly what is going on at your school, and also I'm happy that Martha brought up the ministry because I was about to ask what is the role of the ministry? Are you receiving support? And then, Bevin, I want to come to you for your thoughts on everything that we're talking about so far. Ingrid, you're muted.
My,
Sorry. It really is an approach that you're using to while you're teaching. It's not like a new strategy or
Oh boy, let's give her a minute. Bevin,
doesn't
chime in,
give the teachers
well,
extra work. It just gives you something to help you. So first, if we use a story, we read a story to the children. We ask them to identify, and then after identify, then we ask them to summarize, and that is where it can get a little tricky because children are not familiar with summarizing. So we really have to dig deep and go through the strategy. It will not come out with one, two, three lessons, but you have to do a few lessons where you teach them, where you get them familiar with different questions, with the summarizing what it is that they need to do in order for them to summarize. And once you get that done with them, then they know it. So they know that they have to tell you something from the beginning, something from the middle, something from the end, but something that is important to the story. And then after they summarize, then they have to evaluate, and that is where the question it comes from. So they will tell you whether they liked it or they didn't like it, and then they will also analyze it. So it helps them to develop critical thinking. Whereas we get when we get to that stage, it's also troublesome. You have to take your time and you have to give them the questions, and then you have to guide them along, show them what kind of answers you are looking for. So you are really modeling to the students and let them get it. And when they get it, they will run with it. And after they summarize, then they analyze, we took them to the airport, and then they had to tell us, they had to evaluate the trip and tell us what it is that they would change about the airport after listening to the speaker. What is it that you would like to see at the airport? What could be different? What would make it better for travelers traveling? So when you give children this type of hands-on experience, then they begin to develop and you see them grow in their thinking. I remember using that strategy the first time I used it after I went to the workshop. I got a class of students and they really couldn't write, and it's like writing was a problem because we know that some teachers don't like writing and they don't teach it. So when you get a class of students that cannot write, then you need something to help them. And I was wondering, what is it that I can do with this set of children? And I said, but oh, I went to this workshop over the summer and it was really interesting. I mean, I was really surprised the way that, children were writing using that approach. So I said, I'm going to use it with the students. And then I started using the approach with the students. They were, I think, grade one or so. And then I would take them to the library and we would look at different stories and different books and different types of books. And it developed an interest in the children. And when that interest was there, you could see them. The first thing they would do, they would pick up a book and then they would try to find out who is the author, where was it published. They want to know more about the book, more about it. So I started to see them opening up, and then I realized, well, yes, it's really working. And the interest was there, and then they started writing their sentences now, and they were able to do that and move on and move on. So the approach is really something that teachers can use. It is profitable for the teachers because once you have it done, you know what you're doing, you know how you're going to get the children to the next step. So my advice to teachers in Dominica and everywhere where anybody's listening to try the approach. It never fails. It has not failed me, and I think it is very useful and worthwhile in the classroom.
Yeah, and the thing is kind of thinking outside the box, because the example you share about going to the airport and also just tapping into the kids' interests. So a child is more likely going to want to speak about and write about something that they personally find interesting. So whether it's a superhero, whether it's carnival, whether it's a booyah song, well, the clean ones, tapping into the interests of the children so that they will be more passionate about wanting to write on particular topics. So, Cody, is the idea to kind of just take this across Dominica? Because I think that sounds like a fantastic idea. And then, Bevan, I want to come to you because you speak so very well about education needing to be the foundation of sustainable development. So, I want to come to you so we can expound on that topic. But, Cody, is the idea to take this across Dominica?
Well, good question. So the idea, yes, would be ideally to take this across Dominica. However, it takes an investment in the institution. When I say institution, the school, right? So I'll give you an example. We talk about Bells being our flagship school. Okay. So I was in Dominica last year, and I visited quite a few schools whilst I was down there. And I visited the Wesley primary school. So Wesley has, I want to say, and don't quote me on those numbers, but I want to say they have roughly about 150 students, right? And I met with the principal at the Wesley primary school, and she said, "Hey, I have a real interest in this program. How can you help me out?" So I said, "Okay, how serious are you about this program?" And she indicated that she was familiar with the program, but she needed help. So I go back to Bell's being my flagship school, right? So part of it is, I am my brother's keeper. So if I help you, how can you help others, right? So in the process, we went ahead and subsidized the entire school of Wesley, right? The entire Wesley primary school. And then they are working with Martha and Ingrid in developing the approach. The same thing with the Kalanago territory. So we have a school in Concord that we've partnered up with, and we're providing them with the resources because the principal in Concord is all excited about making a difference in the community, right? So when I talked about that one student that was coming to school and they would talk about the students being agitated, that was a Concord primary school. But the teacher, the principal, took the steps necessary to identify what was going on and being able to step in to make the difference. So those are the schools that we are looking at in partnering up with, right? If you don't have a vested interest in making a difference, we're not going to waste our resources in trying to go to the next step. You have to have a vested in you have to make that investment from your principal all the way down to your teachers to make it a complete endeavor where we can make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking to hear from our teachers as well. So Emma, if you can chime back in as well, just to let us know if this is an approach you're familiar with, if you think it would work at your particular school. We want to hear from you. If you can call in and let us know, if you can post the comments on Facebook at Q95 FM Radio or on YouTube. We want to engage our teachers and our educators in this program. But Bevan, as I come to you, you gave us a mouthful in the beginning, and I was really happy when you talked about the importance of sustainability, adding value, building knowledge, and it boils down to the foundation of all of that is education. So just kind of share your views on everything we've talked about so far.
No, thank you. I mean, Simone, I would say Ingrid hit it on its head, right? I mean, Martha as well. The foundation that we need is critical thinkers. To me, you have to be a critical thinker to think about new processes, innovative processes, new entrepreneurial ideas. How do you engage with the natural world, for example, right? So in Dominica, we see what we have is nature, right? But what we have done is that we have separated our education system from the natural resources that we have. I mean, I remember going to high school, and my biology book is written in with experiments that you run with systems that you get from Western world, right? None of the species or experiments you're running, you can actually identify if it's within your species. Now that may have changed, but these are the type of things I think was crucially important for us to bring into our systems, right? So when Ingrid talks about taking students out to a space that they can identify with and come back and think about it critically, ask questions, challenge the systems as they are, and think critically about solutions and innovative pathways to address problems that they can see. I think that's crucially important. The other thing I would say that's also very important for us, and I think, it's one of the things. So fundamental knowledge, right? We are losing, right? So we have a lot of traditional knowledge that and things that we know has worked. That's important for society to function. But because of our pursuits in trying to adopt systems that not necessarily align with who we are as a people, as a country, as a geographic region, we fall short of addressing the problems that we have sustainably, right? So, if we want to figure out what are the best crops to grow, it should be the crops that we have, right? What are the best, where do we add value to the resources that we have? We should be looking at what we can do internally and not look at externally for every solution that we need for the problems that we have. So I'll say to you, one of the things that I say is that not every solution is worthwhile pursuing, right? You have to think about the resources, the human costs, the intellectual capacity, the impacts on culture, the impacts on society, impacts on health. Look at it in a holistic way. And then when I think of sustainability, I don't think of it just about energy, but I think about it in the holistic fashion, right? Who we are as a people, what are our cultural identities, what are the things that make us Dominican, and how do we leverage that and make the best out of it. And the only way to do this is to have critical thinkers, right? Be able to stand up and question, not in an appropriate way, but it's important to be able to question authority, right? I would say in my world, I have the best idea until the better idea shows up, right? So again, we have to have that mindset where we empower young people to interact with the world that they have and ask the right questions and guide them in a way that they can actually get to a much more, robust, sustainable approach to living.
Yeah, so I think we've unpacked quite a bit already, and I want to thank everyone for their contribution so far. We're going to go over to the studio, and Lambi, who, by the way, Lambi, thank you for being here as always, is going to tell us the phone numbers that our callers can call if they would like to make a contribution to the discussion. But if you tune in late, you're listening to Roots Connections on Q, and today we are joined by the Bernadette Francis Foundation. We are joined by Mr. Cody Barry, Dr. Bevin Etienne, Dr. Martha Joseph, and Miss Ingrid Elwa Ali, and we're talking about beyond scholarships. So here is a wonderful foundation that is creating scholarship opportunities. They've already given 27 scholarships just this weekend to Dominican students, but they see it as important to go beyond just simply giving those scholarships, but rather creating a community where there are check-ins, there are quarterly check-ins to see how the students are doing. There are also creating a mentorship program so that students know the different fields of endeavor that they may pursue as careers. So a very big congratulations to the Bernadette Francis Foundation for all the good work that they're doing in Dominica. And I can see this model kind of going even beyond Dominica, I think, beyond everything. So this model potentially going even beyond Dominica. But first, we have to ensure that it takes root and has a great foundation in Dominica. So Lambi, over to you so you can give out the phone numbers. And then when we come back, we're going to talk more in detail of what exactly the scholarship covers, how to apply, and all that relevant information.
Good evening. You are listening and viewing Roots Connection and Q. The numbers to get to us are as follow: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. These are all local numbers. The overseas number is 305-432-9624. Let me run those numbers one more time. 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. Those are local numbers. The international number is 305-432-9624. No one's on here yet. Simon, back to you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so let's go quickly to the Facebook comments. And guys, if you want to be acknowledged, if you're in the audience on Facebook and you would like to be acknowledged, you can simply post a comment so I can see that you're here and I can acknowledge you. So we have Jane Bertrand. Thank you for being here. Jane, let's see who else we have. We have Yada PS. She says, yeah, Dr. Matha. And we also have, let's see who else we have here. Matilda Jolly is here. So guys, everyone who's on the Facebook Live, the YouTube Live, we want to thank you for being here and thank you for joining us. And as you're listening on the radio as well, thank you for being with us. But before we talk about the challenges, here's another question I want to throw out to the panel. What are the challenges that you're seeing in the work that you're trying to do with everything that you're currently doing? So Dr. Matha, let me come over to you and just talk about, the challenges in general you face with everything that you do. And we know that you do a tremendous amount of work with regards to education. So let's kind of just focus in on Dominica in terms of the challenges that you face.
Okay, so there are challenges, and somebody put on the Facebook Live, we need help in dailies. And I want to chime on that. When Ingrid started that process, she was in daily school because it came out first in 2011, 2012. And she was familiar with it from that time. And she knew it had worked, and that's why she's held on to it. And everywhere she goes, she just blossoms with it. But one of the things that we experience is the idea that we do not have the time for training. So in 2017, I came down. I had a volunteer with me. We had the support of the government. We had 120 educators trained. That was 60 principals and 60 literacy coaches from the schools. That was awesome. People were excited and stuff. But guess what? I gave each school a packet so they could have gone, and this was all donations. Bernadette Francis had donated that time as well. And so teachers were enthusiastic. They went back to school but guess what? Maria came and everything broke. And some of them wrote back to me and they said, we really wanted to work, but Maria came and took everything we had. Can you help us? I raised more funds again. And in 2018, I had 12 schools that wanted to do this. And we made sure we couldn't afford to give every student, but we did like one grade from each grade level. And we had some schools were very consistent. Bellevue, Bells, were 2 schools, and Newtown. Those 3 schools were very consistent because the teachers were still at that school in 2018. So you have other schools where the teacher got trained as a literacy coach from one school, but they got transferred to another school, and probably the principal is new and everybody else is new. And so they have no empowerment to move on. So although the Department of Education says yes, go ahead and you have our permission. Go ahead and do it. That was just it. So, and then in the case of Bells this year, Bells was part of the Pearl project where they have, and Ingrid can give us a little enlightenment on that. But there's there's an initiative to help build Bells School, and what Bells did, they incorporated the writing to respond process as one of the mechanisms they were going to utilize to push them along. And they had in Dominica, they have one Wednesday a month where they have professional development. They send the kids home half day and they have 2 hours for PD. And Bells was able to incorporate PD with me via Zoom at least one Wednesday a quarter. So when I went down to bury my dad last year, I spent an entire day with Bell's School. They were ready. They sent the kids home. They had me there. So in other words, the other teachers, the other schools, we have them like Zoom. They don't see me. They don't get that same feeling that the Bells teachers got. I went to Davis and I did the same, but again, it was one of those rough afternoons. I think we had a hurricane coming that day and everybody on edge. So it wasn't the same. So the biggest challenge is professional development. One of the things that I had requested, and Bernadette Francis was willing to help, was to go down during OCOD, the first 2 weeks in July, where we have teacher training. We were prepared to go down and train teachers, Bells and Dalis and Bacatel, or any school that would have been utilizing the process, and we could use them as experts to like train the trainer. The trainers would train the others. But we never got an okay on that. Everything just kept. So the biggest challenge really is time for training. So even if we have principals that like, I want this at my school, they don't really have the time to train their teachers. I don't get to go to them. We don't get to even spend time on Zoom. We can't take, everything, unions. We can't take teachers off there unless we had a stipend. If we were able to give teachers, and I suggested that before, if we were able to give teachers a stipend to get trained on a Saturday, that's the only thing I can think of. But again, I can't ask a teacher to come to get trained on a Saturday to go to teach unless I'm going to give them some kind of incentive. And that's where the diaspora is going to come in. If the Bell School is saying, or Concord and Wesley right now are saying, we want this. I've spoken to them. I have had sessions with them, but it's just so meager. 1 hour. What can we get? If we want to get opportunities to train those teachers outside of the school hours by giving them incentives at least, I think we will do a lot better, because they want it so badly, but we do not have that opportunity to give them the training that they need.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
to do it, and I always give my training for free. But we don't have we haven't been able to make that time where we can actually have that. Apart from that turnover that we have, maybe by next year, the Bells teacher is going to be the Bells principal, or the Wesley principal might not be there, or the main teacher might not be there. And so you have that big roller coaster going on. When we think we're going to move smoothly next year, we have those hiccups of, oh, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And we have that retraining going on. So it becomes, and it's not just Dominica, by the way, Virgin Islands as well. The difference here is Dominica is philanthropic, the Virgin Islands is paid federal contracting, and it's the same struggles, that exact same thing. And we don't find time for follow-up. We don't find time for, we have the rotation, the turnover of teachers coming on. And so we find things, although we have the money this time, the federal government is providing the contracts, the money, I win the contract, I go in there, I do the training, and then I can't do a follow-up because principals can't find time to include me in that extra. So it's not just a Dominica issue, it's just a school system issue where I don't know if it's about prioritizing, but it's just where we can't find time to train, or we don't have incentives to give to them to train outside of school hours.
Yeah, and I think the incentives play a major role, because I'm sure more teachers would be open to the idea of coming in on a Saturday if
Yeah.
they were given some sort of incentive for their time, because they're already working, beyond the hours that are required from them from Monday to Friday. And now to ask them to come in on Saturday when they're probably trying to catch up with their own personal chores and their own personal responsibilities without a stipend, I doubt most of the teachers would agree to come in. So, Bevan, let me come over to you. Challenges that come to mind.
I have to echo what Mafe is saying. I think for me, I do travel to Dominica quite often. I think one of the things that we have that I've recognized over the years is just capacity. We run some serious capacity shortfalls in Dominica. So when I think about, and by the way, this is why we believe, and to Cody's point, absolutely right, we have to start with, and Mafe's point, we have to start with pre-K. It's almost like we have to rewire that entire system to get, and then, so it's more of a longitudinal approach. It's not going to be solved in 5 years, but we think over a generational shift, then, give it 15, 20 years of something of that nature, then we will yield outcomes that we so desire, right? Where we will have people, critical thinkers in spaces, as managers, as operators, dealing with the entire system. Because right now, if you're trying to piece something together in Dominica, you will come to the realization that, for the most part, we don't have the right tools in some ways, right? The capacity is not there to solve these issues. And we see fundamentally the way to solve that problem is to start with the education. And then again, and the education is not just about what you learn at schools. I mean, we have to keep, as Cody said, we have to give these recipients an opportunity to contribute to society, to society, right? So it's not just, I'm going to get this scholarship, I'm going to move on with my life and go on, but gain a sense of community, right? Can I participate in some way and support those after me? And I think that is, an experiment that we're willing to run.
Yeah, so let me come to you. Thank you, Bevan. Let me come to you, Ingrid. Same question. And then Cody, when I come to you, we want to talk about, of course, the qualifications for the scholarship. What does the scholarship cover? And then one of the things that surprised me on Saturday was listening to one of your presenters talk about the fact that several students, their parents simply did not reapply. So even the challenge that you're facing in terms of having parents not reapply, that you have to chase parents down to reapply for a scholarship for their own children. I was flabbergasted. I was sitting there like, are you kidding me? You have a scholarship and simply having to reapply, and you don't do the necessary paperwork for your child to continue on that scholarship. So I want to talk to you about that. But Ingrid, let me come to you first to talk about challenges before we move on.
Well, I think one of the challenges that the approach faces is that some teachers don't know what it's about, and they feel that it is extra work. But really, it isn't, and it is not something that teachers don't know. So if I think if teachers maybe taught how to do it, as Mafa is saying, it comes back to her challenge in doing the workshops with teachers, then that would push the approach forward. Because I say sometimes before mechanics had to open vehicles and fix them, and then they're comfortable now with using computers to look at the vehicle, and before doctors had to open people, and now they use
Give her a minute. Okay, Cody, jump in.
Yeah, to echo what Ingrid is saying, it's a talking about adapting, right?
Yes.
going to
As things move,
gravitate towards it.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Ingrid. We got what you were saying. Thank you. Go ahead, Cody.
So
Yeah.
as things change, you have to adapt, right? So it's talk about the change cycle, right? If you can't adapt, things you're going to fall by the wayside. So I want to address the comment that you made and the challenges that we face.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unfortunate. Um, Last year we gave 30 scholarships, right? So that last year was our biggest scholarship funding. By the way, uh, the unfortunate thing about funding, um, our funding primarily comes from family members. Okay, we get very little funding from the diaspora. Maybe they don't know about us, right? And we are trying to do a better job at it. Okay, that's why I'm on the road talking about the foundation. Okay, so our funding is limited. Um, when I look at the approach that Dr. Maffa Jay is providing, we look at it. It costs approximately, and I'm going to make this so people can listen to this very, very, very carefully. It costs about $150 per student to go from pre-K all the way to sixth grade. Just $150
US.
US. It takes approximately $25 per year. How much money do we spend going to Starbucks? Okay, $25 per year per student. Just think about that, right? And it is disheartening when we have folks that talk about what goes on in Dominica and are not willing to make the investment in changing the tide. That's what hurts me, right? So I always say, either put up or shut up, right? If you're gonna sit down there and complain, I don't want to listen to you. You need to be part of the solution. How are we going to change the tide? Again, $25 per year per student. We spend that in 1 week at Starbucks. Okay? Think about that. That we can make the change, the difference in a child's life that could impact them throughout their lifespan. $125, $150, sorry, to take them from pre-K all the way to sixth grade to get them prepared so they can be successful. It's nothing. It is absolutely nothing to make that kind of investment in your country. Okay, I'm making an appeal to your audience and asking them to think about it, to think about the differences that we as diaspora can make into our communities to help schools like Bells, schools like Decas, schools like Portsmouth, wherever you come from, to make the difference in your community, to see the fruits of your investment. So to address your question, how do folks apply for scholarships? So every year, towards the end of the school year, during about the beginning of July to end of July, we have in June to July, we have an open application process. So again, this is not based on just grades; it's based on needs. So students go to our website, they apply. There's letters of recommendations that they have to get. They have to put in their grades and so forth and so forth.
One second, Cody. Do we have a call coming in, Lambi?
Yes, we do.
Yes, just hold your thought,
Sure.
Cody. Let's take the call.
Caller, please go ahead.
Hey, good evening to you. Lambi, how are you doing, man? Good evening to Simone and your
Hey,
guest.
hi, Lennon.
Studio and the good. Hey, I sent you a message. I couldn't get in earlier, but I just want to say, hey, thanks for always bringing thought-provoking and extremely valuable conversation in your programs. But
Thank you.
earlier on in your presentation, you did mention that there are, and I know that's a notion in Dominica that, not every kid has an academic ability and should go to secondary school. I would like to dispel that notion, because I think too long it's just the mere fact of saying that we are really saying that people with skills shouldn't go to secondary school. And I think that's part of the problem. I think instead what we should do is take out the relationship between academics and secondary school. And I send you a text, hopefully you didn't get to read it. But what I mean by that is, why can't we have both of these disciplines at a secondary school level? Make it an institution of learning where kids can identify their gifts, their skills and talents. As a matter of fact, I think at secondary school, if it's done right, it's the best place to help kids see what are their strengths, what are their talents, and utilizing and developing that talent so that they can become successful. It's a given fact that the skills, the engineering, are some of the highest paying disciplines in the outside world. I mean, there are people who do things like instrumentation. I know a young man who has an associate degree in instrumentation, didn't finish his college degree, and is making six figures compared to somebody who studies sociology or psychology or some kind of field that is of that. Nothing's wrong with that. But what I'm saying is that I think we've been saying that for so long that we actually make the relationship between academics and secondary school, and that should not be the case. I think that secondary school should be seen as an institution of learning, irrespective of whether you are a gifted, skilled, talented, arts, whatever the case may be. And that way, you can have all the disciplines. And as a matter of fact, in today's world, there are interdisciplinary studies, because a musician can study business. He has to understand business. A welder can study a business because he has to study business. There are people who are doctors. I have heard testimonies, live testimonies of people who've gone to medical school, started their business practice, very good at medicine, but terrible at running an office, and had to go to school to do an MBA or some degree in business so they can learn to understand how to operate and manage a business. And I think that is part of the problem in the narrative. We talk about it like, hey, there's academics and there is skills. I'm saying that should be dispelled. That way, when the young guy is growing up, he doesn't feel that he's second class because I'm not going to a secondary school, or I'm not going to the CIFO call, I'm going to tech call, and it's not the best institution. I think we have to get away from that notion and ensure that learning is not just about the maths and the pure science and all that stuff, but learning takes several different forms. And irrespective of whether your skills are, what makes a society stronger and better is not whether you have a whole bunch of brainiacs, but you have people who can work together with the brains and the skills and the technology and all that stuff to make something that's beautiful. And I always like to use music as an example because a lot of people can relate. A musical band sounds great, not because the drummer is the best, or the keyboardist is the best, or the saxophonist is the best. What makes music harmony the best is because everybody have a different instrumental and skill. But when you put them together, the symphony and the harmony you hear is what is beautiful. And I think if we have that mindset, we will realize in our education system, by the time the kids get to that age, how can we identify, one, the gift, skills, and talents that they have? How can they advance and better that gift, skills, and talent, and to make a meaningful contribution to their community and society, and at the same time earning a living, and most of all earning that fulfillment, that earthly fulfillment we have. But as I said, great program. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, and I absolutely love listening. You have a good night.
Yes, thank you, Lennon. And absolutely, you're correct. And I think that's what my intention was with what I said before. I may have misspoke. But the idea is, yes, everyone has the rights to education. So the idea of lifting all the students into secondary school is important because, again, we don't want anyone to feel less than because they haven't attended secondary school, but making that distinction into different avenues within the secondary school that they can pursue so that they're not, forced into one particular direction where they become frustrated because they are not inclined in that particular direction. But thank you, as always, Lennon, for your valuable contribution. So, Cody, back to you.
So I just want to echo what he just said, right? So in the U.S., I'm in the manufacturing world, and we face a similar situation, right? So not every student has the path for going to post-secondary education. Okay, so what are we doing? We're looking to see what opportunities students have beyond going to college, right? So we're saying, okay, there are opportunities within the manufacturing world that you can get a good opportunity. And guess what? If you so choose, you can get post-secondary education through that institution, right? So those are the kinds of things we work with. However, let's go back to the comment that he made, your listener made. And I agree with that, right? So not everyone, the path in life is going down the path of education, right? However, we have to be able to identify those students and provide them with the skill sets and the tools necessary for them to be successful, right? So think about this. If you've got a guy who is fantastic in his hands in carpentry, right? And he or she may not want to pursue a degree, okay? How do we take that skill set and build on that skill set, but also just as important, to provide them with the tools necessary so that they can thrive in that kind of environment, right? Not just say, okay, you're good at doing this, so we're just going to let, okay, how else can we support you to be successful? Because we don't want folks taking advantage of you because you may not have that kind of ability to be able to negotiate things, right? So we want to be able to we should be thinking as a society, how can we build off of that? Like Bevan said, you've got folks that today, when you look at our farming industry, who really runs farming in Dominica? Let's face it, you go to the market, it's not Dominicans in the market, okay? It's folks from Haiti in the market. Why is that the case, right? So we got to think about the root cause, right? Think about the root cause. So coming back to the discussion that we were having before your caller came in, one of the things that we run into is that folks get scholarships. Next year comes around, there's a requirement. You need to submit your grades. You need to redo your application process, right? And once you've done that, then you get the opportunity for renewal on your scholarship. What we are finding is that the mindset is, oh, I got the scholarship. On some folks, not all folks, I got a scholarship, so therefore next year I'm going to get it. No, because guess what? We've had, I will say this, we've had some students who actually were awarded scholarships one year, and then next year, time for renewal, they came up and said, I got a full ride. Could you please take your scholarship that you've given me and award it to someone else, right? So that's one of the things we talk about, integrity, right? It's not that I'm going to take it. I want to give the opportunity to someone else. And that's the kind of stuff that we are looking at. These are the kinds of things we call the successes, right? Because you have an individual that says, hey, you've helped me. How can I help somebody else? Right? It's a community.
Now tell us about the age requirement. So the scholarship goes to what is the age requirement, the qualifications for applying for the scholarships?
Okay. So in terms of the scholarship application process, so we do scholarships from high school. So you enter in first form all the way through the Dominica State College. Okay, so we just had an individual who actually went to UWI, and she just graduated from UWI. So this was her last year with the scholarship. She had the scholarship for, if my memory serves me correctly, for the last 2.5 years. She got awarded a scholarship. Okay, she had a need, she applied, and we were able to meet her need based on the qualification requirements. Because part of it is not just applying for it. Is there a need, a financial need? So you have to have someone within your community vouch for that need, whether it be a principal or some standing member in your community. They will vouch, they'll send a letter of recommendation as far as why this individual should be awarded, should be considered for being awarded that scholarship. So what we look at, we have limited funds. So we said, okay, this year the funding that we have will go to, let's just say, 20 scholarships. So based on the needs, when we look at the applicants, then the 20 students that have the most need will get awarded the scholarships.
Mm-hmm. And everyone who listens to my program, of course, knows to always have a pen and paper handy, because we're going to be giving out important information. So the website is BernadetteFrancisFoundation.org. That's correct, right? I'm Cody.
That's correct.
So Bernadette, so BernadetteFrancis Foundation.org. So Bernadette Francis Foundation.org is the website, and it has all the information, including the application. So if you or someone you know has a child of high school age, you certainly want to apply based on need. And I think just about everybody in Dominica at this point has some kind of financial need. So go ahead and submit your application so that you can be considered, your child can be considered for that scholarship for next year. So as we continue along, the time is speeding along with us. We just want to talk about what's next. What's next for the Bernadette Francis Foundation? What is next for Dr. Martha, Ingrid, Bevan? What is next for the foundation and the programs, the work that you do? So let's go ahead and start with you, Bevan.
All right, so for Lester, we think of the foundation as literally a stepping stone. It's a seed, right, that we planted by my cousin Vincia, literally, like Cody said, went through the process, recognized that she was able to get to where she got through because of that ability from, by the way, had it not been Uncle Barry, that's Cody's dad, getting that $5 to go to school, to kind of start that whole process, then the idea of, Vincia Francis and the Bernadette Francis Foundation would not even be here today, right? Mm-hmm. So we see this as a community. And by the way, what we also recognize is that when someone excels and someone does well through education, then it's not just themselves. They also bring up the community with them, right? Wherever they live, wherever they work, whatever they do, they contribute to society in ways that otherwise will not be possible. So we don't see that as just an individual solving an individual's problems. We see that solving a community's problem. So one of the things that I have been thinking about is how do we establish almost a quasi-institution through the Bernadette Francis Foundation to look at the things that we have in Dominica and encourage our people to look at the things that we have with a different lens and for a different view. Because when I shop in Dominica, I see opportunities, right? But when I speak to the people who live in Dominica on an everyday level, they see challenges, and as such, they try to figure how quickly can they jump out into some space, other space. But I think it's also to help them understand how these opportunities can be materialized, and how can we use education, how can we use innovation, how can we use critical thinking to actually address these problems. And that goes back to what the caller said. I think I must have mentioned it earlier on. there's no reason why we should not be pursuing both the ability to use your brain and use your hand and use your mind. But to get to that point, you have to be a critical thinker. You have to be able to think critically. And if you do, because that's the only way you're going to be successful in some ways, right? And that, I think, is where we want to spend our time, resources, and energy. But I have, I feel good about the future when I think about what can be done. I'm just hoping that we can keep that momentum going, grow, scale, get more students through the program, and then see how we can then leverage. Because as students come out from the program, how can we identify the students and put them into spaces to look at the resources, the things that we have in Dominica, and look at it through the lens of creating value. No, not just value from an extractive model, but value for a sustainable model, right? How can we create value that doesn't deplete our ability in Dominica to keep on producing continuously is something that I'm really, really interested in.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Mantha, what's next for you, your work, your relationship with the Bernadette Francis Foundation? Where do you want to see all this go?
Thank you. Unmute.
Try again. Unmute.
Press Command and E.
There you go. I think she keeps. It's unmuted. Go ahead. Oh. All right, let's go to you, Cody, for a minute while Martha rectifies the situation. So what's next? What's next? Where is all this headed?
So when I look at what's next, my thought process is being able to develop the relationships with institutions in Dominica, right? So looking at folks like Astifans, Dominica Coconut Products, and so forth, right? And saying, okay, we've got students. How can we provide them with a mentorship or a internship program, right? So that they can have an opportunity to go and learn something about a business, right? And even one of the women's initiative in Dallas, the Cassava initiative, the Tampiaco initiative that we were financing, is being able to have students go into institutions like that and understand how business works, right? Give them the skill set, the understanding, so that they can, whatever they learn, they can apply it, right? So that's my vision. How we can continue to nurture our students, and I'm saying this because there are other organizations that offer scholarships within Dominica. But think about not just offering a scholarship, but how can you develop a mentorship program where you can help a student all the way so that they can become independent and give back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Martha, is it, let's see if you're good to go.
I think I'm unmuted, but I don't see myself. But anyway.
Yes, okay, we can see you. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay, so thank you so much for this opportunity, Cody. And I have been partnering with Bernadette Francis from 2018, 2017, 18, and I want to continue. The challenge, of course, is being able to, and my work is free. My what we really need funding for is the resources. Pro bono, I don't know if pro bono works for my work, but we have resources in Dominica for as many schools that want to participate, but we need people to support by just what Cody said, $25 per child. If you don't want to think of a child for 6 years down the road, that's fine. Find out how many students are in the school in your community. Let us suppose you're from Concord or wherever you are and say, okay, there are 50 students in this school and I want to sponsor each child for just this year. That's okay. Because the thing about the workbooks, they're perpetual, especially the grades 3 to 5, which means if a child gets a workbook from grade 3, they can use the same one all the way to grade 5 because The teacher is the boss. You are the one who choose the work to read. And so the child can use it over and over. The second, pre-K, second, and first are not. You have to get a new one for the next grade level. But the point is, if the diaspora people from each community would decide, okay, my school wants to do it, let us just sponsor one semester or 1 year. That's fine. You don't need to give us 150 for your whole school for 6 years. You can do 1 year at a time, and that's fine. And so that is the challenge we are facing, because we don't charge for doing Zoom sessions. I don't charge for PD sessions. All of the PD is done free. What we need help in is with two things: for us to have time to do the PDs, and for us to be able to have the resources for the students, because what the resources are is for measuring progress. So while it is an approach, we need the workbooks so that the students can measure progress. And then the teachers, a teacher might say, a principal might say, well, we got trained last week, but I have a new teacher this week. There are resources for the teachers that we can give to them as well. So one can teach the other. So if we get that little help from the outside, I think we can do a lot more. The government of Dominica, the Ministry of Education has already given us permission. If we can convince principals, there are lots of other principals. Most of the people who are principals now, they went to school. We went to Teachers College together. So I have a relationship with them. I follow through with them. We have schools that want to right now. Bells, Dailies, Newton, Bellevue. We have teachers in those schools that want to. Rosa Primary. But it's the same thing. We don't have the resources. We don't have the means, the time. And so if we can factor that in, I think we can move mountains. And what I do best is to partner with nonprofits. I also partner right now. I have a radio show that's called Labby Teal, and I had a guest on, and we talked about child saving. We talked about remittances, actually. And right now they're working into getting funding so we can do some child saving in schools in Dominica for the students who come to school and probably don't have an account because nobody can afford it. So if we can give those kids a saving throughout their school life and teach them financial literacy, then we will have what Bevan is talking about, sustainable development. If we can, on Sunday, my next show is going to talk about youth skills that can withstand climate change. In other words, skills for climate action. And that's what I want to do. I want to partner with people who want to support. Right now in Dominica, we just had a show where we find out that we are not giving stipends anymore to students who are in the youth skills program. We don't have to give them stipends. What we have people doing is providing snacks for lunch, bus transportation for 4 months. Think about it. You're going down to town for 4 months to learn a skill and you don't have a stipend. That's what I want the diaspora to do. That's what I'm looking for help to do. Let us do, as Bevan said, let's do something home where we can have funds going in and we can say, hey, this young man is going to learn welding. He has a stipend for the 4 months as he's down there. Or somebody's learning sustainable agroforestry because he's saying, hey, he says, I see all the opportunities. And you're right. But if we train those, we need to be able to give them those incentives to be trained. I mean, it's sad, but they have to eat as well. And so I could talk forever on this.
I can tell you're very passionate about it.
Very, very passionate. It's only half an hour on the radio station. Bevan, I'm coming for you. I hope I can get you to talk one of those days. But Sunday coming, we're going to talk about skills that support climate action. Because
Absolutely.
we have to be ready. What are we going to do? Because we are in the path and the mouth every summer. So we have to do that. So yeah, I want to partner with people. And Simona, thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
I want the diaspora to put their money where their mouth is. If they can't come, send that money. Let's support those things at home so that we can provide incentives and we can push things going forward.
1 second, Lambi. And that is why one of the pillars of this program is turning your passion for Dominica into action for Dominica. Because, someone once told me we like to talk in Dominica because we have a parrot on the flag. So, but I think we can do a whole lot more than simply talking. So when we come back, I think we have a call. But when we come back, the question I want to throw out as our final question is the importance of collaboration, because I'm looking at the panel this evening and what I'm seeing are Dominicans who are willing to collaborate, who are willing to pool their resources together to do important things to help advance our people and help to invest in our young people, because that is what we need. When we look at the passion and we look at the energy of those young people on the weekend and we just look at their potential, and I'm thinking, how are we harnessing that? How are we tapping into the energy and the potential we're seeing with these young people to elevate them, to make them independent, and to help to advance them? And Dominica, Alambe, is the caller still around?
Yes, the caller is still there.
Yes.
Caller,
Yes.
please go ahead. Oh, he's gone.
Okay, maybe they'll call back. But guys, the importance of collaboration. So Ingrid, let me get started with you, and then we'll go around, and then you can just chime in your final thoughts in within that question as well. Ingrid, can you hear us? Unmute. Yes.
Sorry. What's next for us is that I've been approached by some principals to do some hands-on training with the schools. So we are looking to see how we can move from my school to their school. So that's a little bit challenging, but we are working on that. So that's what's next for us. And it's still a matter of collaborating and working together. So yes, that's it. And I was thinking of the previous caller who said that he was talking about children and schools, and I was also thinking that the writing to respond approach is not only for children who can write and do classroom work. It's also for the child that is not learning at all. You have some children that cannot learn, but they think very well. So it would develop their thinking, it would develop their critical thinking, because if you cannot read and write, you really need to think for yourself. So in going into other fields that you really don't need to be able to do maybe some classroom work, you also need to think for yourself, and the approach teaches children to think in whatever capacity. It's not only related to narratives, it's related to expository, life, anything. You can use this approach across the board. That's why I love it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ingrid. Bevan, let me come over to you. Let's take the call real quick. 1 minute.
Caller, please go ahead.
Okay. Hello. Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Good night.
I'm listening to you all there. But what about the slow learners? Like those with disability. Now, my daughter, my name is Doreen Ashby. I'm a mother of a 28-year daughter with Down syndrome. And I got places to put her. She was in the youth center, but they told me they are not trained to teach someone with Down syndrome. So I have to step in as the teacher, but then I have to go out now to get a teacher to come and help. Then I had her at the state college in a program. Same thing happened. We are not trained to teach someone with Down syndrome. I put her in a program they had at the university, photograph business. And the same thing the gentleman told me. We're not trained to work with her. So how you all can help us in Dominica to train the teachers to deal with Down syndrome people, to the youth, to teach them because you know they're slow. We know they're slow, but they too need to be educated. Nobody knows what they can do if they don't work with them and if they don't give them an opportunity.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you very much. Have
yes.
a nice night.
Yes, you're welcome. And I've heard this mother on several occasions calling the radio and appealing to, having assistance for differently able, I like to call them, young people and even older people in Dominica. But I think that that is really at the ministry level, that is something that the Ministry of Education, because as she talks about putting her daughter in different programs and then at each point receiving the information that they don't have a qualified teacher to assist. And you can tell that that mother is very passionate and rightfully so. She should be because that is her child. But again, that is really at the ministry level that an intervention needs to be made. So ma'am, please continue calling, continue reaching out, reach out to the ministry and keep the pressure so that differently able children will be accommodated in Dominica. But Bevan, I was coming over to you for your final thoughts and the importance of collaboration as we look at the important work, as we're looking at the important work that the Bernadette Francis Foundation is doing and just bringing in other resources into the foundation. But before I forget, guys, if you tuned in late, don't forget you can always catch the replay of this program, including the name of the foundation that we're referring to, www.bernadettefrancisfoundation.org, so you can check the playback of this program on YouTube at Q95 FM Radio and Facebook, same Q95 FM Radio or Facebook Pushback 10. So don't forget you can catch the replay and also don't forget to share this information because as you can tell, we're really trying to reach as many people as possible. We all know Q95 reaches the entire world. So we're trying to reach as many people as possible to contribute in some way to this foundation. $25 is what we're asking to be able to sponsor a child in Dominica, our need to turn that passion for Dominica into action for Dominica. So Bevan, over to you.
Well, thanks, Simone. I think so collaboration, I think, is key in my world, right? I think and collaboration in the true sense. So I think you got to be humble to collaborate in some ways, right? To be collaborative, you cannot just be. It's not just your way. You have to be able to listen and accept, the diversity of thought processes and approaches to solving problems. I think when we think about what is it that we're trying to achieve, we know that we're working with humans, right? And people have different needs, different expectations. And the experiences that we have is what shapes the way we think and function in the world. How do we bring those experiences into one space and appreciate the best pathway to solve these problems? And then I think that's what comes about with some of the work that we've done at BFF. I mean, and the partnership with Martha has been great in many ways, right? Because these are things that we would, like I said, when I think about the capacity shortfall in terms of the ability for critical thinkers and that space that we need to build up over the next decade or so, we can do it alone. It's impossible, right? I mean, we have our own lives to live, families and everything else to take care of. But here we have someone that's specialized in doing this type of work. That's what, when she goes to sleep, that's what she thinks about. When she gets up, that's what she thinks about. How can we leverage that resource and work with that resource, that person, that human being, that capacity to help us achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And that's, I think, what we're looking for. Even like Cody said, I mean, the idea that I know that there are, hundreds, thousands of Dominicans out there who would like to see a better outcome for the communities, for, maybe even family members in spaces in Dominica. And they just don't have the pathway to do it in a sustainable way. But an institution like BFF has that relationship on the ground already that could achieve those things much more efficiently. And that's why we're here and looking to, hear from people and work alongside them to solve these issues.
Yes, thank you very much, Bevan. And before we come to you, Cody, for the final word, let us just see on Facebook, Claralyn Warrington. Great to have you on board as always. She says, good evening to each and everyone. I'm watching and listening. And then we have Jared Dorset, who says, God bless this program. Amen. Thank you for being here, Jared. So, Cody, I wanted to save the final word for you. And again, congratulations to everyone on the panel for the important work that you're doing with the Bernadette Francis Foundation in Dominica. Again, awarding 27 scholarships just this year to Dominica. And that does not include the amount of scholarships you have awarded in the last 11 years of being a foundation. So, Cody, I want to come over to you for your final thoughts as we wind down this evening. So take it away.
Again, thank you, Simone, for giving the foundation the opportunity to come on your program and talk about what it is that we do, how we impact Dominica as a whole. Again, Bernadette Francis Foundation is a non-profit foundation that is established in Tampa, Florida. So if you go to our website, you can make your tax deductible contribution on our website, and that funding goes towards education, goes towards the literacy program. In our foundation, no one in our foundation gets paid. It's all voluntary, right? So all our hard work, we give it. That's what the way we were brought up, and that's the way we operate. So what I would like to end this conversation in saying to the diaspora, if you're looking for an organization to partner with to make the difference in Dominica, Bernadette Francis Foundation is your foundation. Non-political, we reach the entire population of Dominica. No child needs to be left behind. Like your caller said, higher education may not be for everyone, but how as a diaspora can we make a difference in our community? It is up to each and every one of us. Our land, our Dominica has given a lot to us. So let's think about how can we give back to our sweet nature isle that we call home, that we love to go back to for Creole Fest, for Carnival. Think about it. $25 per child. $150 for the entire primary school education. The impact that you can have on that child, on that school. Let's make that difference.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Cody, Dr. Etienne, Dr. Joseph, Miss Ingrid, Elwa. Thank you all for being here and for the amazing contribution. I look forward to keeping in touch with you, Cody, as we continue to raise awareness. We continue to raise funds for the important work that you're doing. Thank you, Lamy, for taking the calls to our audience on the radio, listening via Q95 on the radio as well, Facebook, YouTube, Mr. G and the Q95 family. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And speaking about turning our passion into action for Dominica, you know, we have yet another young lady who has the opportunity to be a presenter at the Caribbean Music Awards on August 29th, 2024. If you have been following this particular award ceremony, it is the second time it's being held by Wycliffe Jean and his team in Brooklyn. And fortunately for us, last year, Miss J.L. Joseph won the opportunity to be the presenter at the Caribbean Music Award. So this year again, we're trying to make sure Dominica stays represented. And that is important because when JL was on, she got them to acknowledge bouillon music. There was not a category for bouillon music last year. And this year, we now have a category for bouillon music. So again, turning that passion for Dominica into action for Dominica. So we want you to support. Her name is LaDonna, and she's trying to be the presenter this first year representing Dominica. So you can simply go to my website at www.pushpast10.com. So pushpast10.com to click on the link and to cast your vote. So, we're giving you all sorts of opportunities to show that we're more than just people who have these conversations. The conversations are important, but what is the next steps we ought to be taking? So again, guys, thank you for being here. Let's see, somebody jumped in last minute. Royce Barron, great program. Hi to Martha Bevin. That's Gertrude. Big up, Cody. So hi, Royce. Thank you for being here. So again, thank you everyone for being here. I am Simone Matthew, and you've been listening to Roots Connections on Q95 FM radio. This is the program where we stop by every second and fourth Wednesday to tap into the potential of our Dominican brothers and sisters at home and abroad for the advancement of our beautiful country. So with that, we say you have yourself a wonderful evening until we meet again right back here in about 2 weeks. You take care, and thank you again for joining us for this episode of Roots Connection. So say bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye.
Joe! Rastafari. Home. Oh, children, home. Wanna go home. Oh, yes, children, home. Got to go. Yeah, we've been trodden from tendencies right on through revelation.